Hi, this is Cammy Davis and my website is cammydavis.com. I decided to do a tutorial of my newest project so that you guys could make one as well if you'd like. I've been dying to do a piece of garden art since I moved in with my grandma because I haven't had a yard in a long time. So I started saving tin can lids and just kind of wanted to come up with something with reclaimed items. So the sculpture behind me is the one that I came up with. I knew I wanted to make my garden art out of reclaimed items, so I started by finding some old barnwood. And then I gathered the tin can lids that I had been collecting throughout the year, and I think we need to eat more canned foods because this is all we had after a year. It was barely enough for my project. And then the first thing to do is to drill holes through the center of them, and I just took a Sharpie and marked where I wanted the holes to be. Clamped the tin can lids down to my bench with a little piece of plywood in between my bench and the lid so that I could drill the hole all the way through. And one of the things I found is that you want to just barely go through the metal lid, because otherwise it gets kind of dangerous. It starts flying up your drill bit and stuff. So I found to just go slow. Where I wanted the lids to bend around the edge of the wood, I put them in a vice grip, and then I took a hammer and just hammered them to the side so that they got that 45-degree angle. So then I wanted to figure out what to do with the second half of my sculpture. So I went into the backyard and looked around for old, metally, rusty, interesting looking things. And I caretake my grandma, so there were some interesting old things in her backyard. But if you aren't in that situation, there's so many places, of course, where you can find this type of thing. Thrift stores, garage sales, salvage yards are a great place to find stuff. And just look for anything that appeals to you visually. The more odd it is, the better, really. For instance, for most people, this would probably be a fire screen. That's what most people see. But what I see is what it's going to look like on my sculpture. So this is what I see in my mind, is kind of a grid, rusted, metally, just interesting shapes to it. So I liked it. I grabbed it and took it with me. I wanted to find a space in the yard that it would show off my sculpture, but it wouldn't overpower the yard. So I chose a spot that's between a tree and a bush, and I'm going to put it right behind the bush, and that way when you're driving up the road, it kind of peeks over it, so it's kind of a tease, I guess. And so here I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with the second half of my sculpture. And I took the wider pieces of barnwood and wrapped the fencing around it, screwed them in, again with some washers and screws, and it still looked a little bit boring to me, so I decided I wanted to add a sunshine underneath the fencing. And this is just the first layer with the yellow sun. But I'm laying the sculpture out with some rebar between it, and then I'm trying to figure out how to put it into the ground, because it's really important that I have everything parallel and balanced and level on this. So I thought that I could take cardboard boxes, bury those in the ground, or dig those into the ground, and which is what I'm starting to do here. And then I'd have to have something, of course, to hold up the boards while I got the concrete to set. But I want to make a point that if you don't know how to do something, go look it up online, or the biggest thing is don't be afraid to jump in and start it, because I think so many people end up not doing projects because they're procrastinating because they want to know exactly how to do it right. And sometimes it's just so much more fun to jump in. And I find that I do that often. I jump in and try to figure something out, and I come up with more creative ideas by doing that. But then I also end up going back and redoing it, thus the new picture here with the wood on the side, because just about the time I got the cardboard in the ground, my mom sped up in her little Miata, jumped out, and said, Cammy, I don't think that cardboard is actually going to hold your concrete in. So I had to redo it. But so I found some plywood with flowers on it, no less, in the garage, and built an actual plywood box. And then I started trying to figure out how to get the
the sculpture to stand up straight and be balanced while I was putting it into the concrete, into the ground. And I pulled out this sawhorse, and I ended up duct taping it. Well, first I did painter's tape, but that didn't hold so well. I kind of mentioned that I have to redo things often. So then I used duct tape and got it to work. And then to keep the rebar parallel with the boards, I ended up putting little spacers between it and taping those in as well. And then this is the finished sculpture, and I'm happy with it. I think that I am going to go in and put some more probably of the washers and screws in on the bottom part of it and add a little bit more interest there and stuff. But I'm happy with how it turned out. And of course I still need to put, grass or rocks or something around the base of it because it's just kind of sitting there in the middle of the lawn. But other than that, I think I'm really happy with it. So I hope that you jump in and try some projects of your own. And this is that round thing that you saw earlier in the tutorial that I had scrounged up. It was actually a plant base with wheels and really no good for anything, but I had some extra concrete and at the end, so I just dumped it in there, and then I started looking around in my workshop for things that would add some visual interest to it. And you'll notice that I left a lot of negative space, and that's something that I do with layouts. I think it adds a lot more interest to leave a place for your eye to rest, and then it makes the circles in this case more interesting when you look at them.
Thanks for watching my tutorial, and if you have any questions or any ideas or have any great pieces of garden art that you've made from reclaimed material, shoot me an email so I can get them up on my website. And stay creative. That's our new sculpture for the yard. What do you think?
I think that flower is pretty.
You like the flower? What do you think of the tin can lids?
I don't know what to think of it.
That's kind of what I figured. Well, we're merging both of our styles, Graham.
Yeah.